The Unfiltered by Jade.
Jade.
Welcome to the Unfiltered by Jade, where we educate, empower, and entertain. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, download, donate, and make everybody know about this.
Beats by RB Records.
Shopping assistance, your style, your budget. Our services include online and local shopping for individuals and businesses, personal shopping, purchasing of company and office supplies, importing and exporting small packages across Jamaica and worldwide, and helping you find unique gifts and items for all events and occasions. Contact us at 876-919-5195 or shoppingassistance2015@gmail.com. Shopping Assistance, your style, your budget.
Welcome back to the Unfiltered by Jade. Today we have with us Kadian Russell Lewis, and she is going to be speaking to us about Hospice Homecare. So Kadian is a founder/CEO of Precious Memories Hospice Homecare, and we're here to learn so much more about it for not just ourselves but for family members. So hi Kadian, welcome to the Unfiltered.
Thank you for having me.
Well, first and foremost, I've read your story, but I want other persons who have not or who don't know your story to tell us why is it that you thought about doing this? What's behind this?
Glad you asked me that question. So if at the beginning, this is the beginning of my career. I became a nurse May 2006. From before I went to nursing school, I already knew that nursing was the career path that I wanted to choose. Taking care of people was my passion. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, in 2015 was a life-changing year for my family. In April 2015, paternal grandmother died. August 2015, my brother and only sibling met into a life-altering car accident. And November of 2015, my paternal grandfather died. My brother unfortunately passed in January 2017. It was a long road healing process. I knew at some point there would be a time that I would want to memorialize my grandparents and my brother. Mm-hmm. My grandmother had Alzheimer's, my grandfather dementia, my brother, because of the car accident, suffered a traumatic brain injury. So all three of these things impact your memory. Although they weren't in hospice care, I just kind of focused on how the end of their life was. I know that my grandparents, they lived their best life. They were married for 70 years. Even before they declined, I remember growing up, seeing my grandfather walking down the street with my grandmother to go to Friendlies, and my grandfather having our handbag in his hand going down the street. And when you think of memories, you think of something that you want to cherish. And for me, the hospice aspect of nursing focuses on the total person. So the memory, although the memory is gone, the memory for the family still remains. That's why I chose this path. I wanted the last memories that the patient has, or even the family has, to be something that they can cherish years down the line.
So tell us, for persons who have never heard about hospice before, what is hospice home care and how does it differ from other types of healthcare?
So whenever anyone thinks of hospice, they think of death. Yes. They think of the doctors pretty much giving you a death sentence. This is pretty much the end of it. They've exhausted everything. Hospice, for me, like I said before, is taking care of the entire man. When you're dealing with regular home care, it's more task oriented. They assist like with appointments, medication compliance, helping with home, cooking, showering, etc. Hospice home care focuses on the patient, not the task. So, so hospice, although people hear it and think automatically death, no, hospice is taking care of the person so that as they transition from this side of life to the next, they have a memorable experience.
Yeah, but Kadian, for persons like me, first of
Mhm.
all, this is a topic
Right,
that I normally veer away from because of what it speaks about. And
right,
I know you're saying hospice is really the person that the focus is on the individual themselves. But for persons and for myself also, it really is, yes, it's the individual themselves and taking care of them, but
right.
it's also almost preparing them for death.
Correct. That is
And
true.
yeah, so that alone kind of leaves people feeling, I don't even know the words, it feels sad. There's a sad feeling towards it. It's unsettling. It's something that people don't normally want to speak about
Correct.
because, how am I supposed to mentally know that I'm here trying to prepare my loved one for death? It's hard to kind of, put your finger on to kind
Correct.
of figure out.
I agree. So, like you said, it's preparing you for death, but it's also getting the patient and their family to the place of accepting what their future is going to be and then focus on leaving that legacy, focus on their what I would say their bucket list, what they want to complete in life before they close their eyes.
Listen, hats off to you for doing this. Because this is not an easy word. This is dealing with grief. And this is grief from the inset. Because from people put their loved ones in hospice, that's really has started the process of grieving.
Correct.
So hats off to you for that. How does hospice home care prioritize comfort and quality of life over creative treatments?
So like you just mentioned, hospice deals with grief. And I remember in high school, I completed a class called Death and Dying. And it was a religion class, one of our prerequisites to graduate. And we had to sit and write our own obituary.
No man. Mm-mm-mm-mm.
And I know that's a heavy topic,
Oh,
but
man.
this is what we did. And I chose this class. It wasn't we had to have a religion class. This was one that was appealing to me, as gruesome or dark as it may be to some individuals. It was still appealing to me because I wanted to know, because going into the medical field, I'm going to have to be dealing with every stage of life, whether it be birth, whether it be treatment, whether it be death. So I remember the teacher teaching us about the stages of grief. And there are 5 stages of grief. First, there's denial, there's anger, there's bargaining, there's depression, and there's acceptance. And for my agency, we're there to support the patient and the family through every stage of grief. And you'll realize when they reach to the stage of acceptance, like I said before, this is where they focus on what they want to accomplish. So whether it be going to Disney for myself and my family, December was the first time that I've ever been to Disney in my entire life.
Mm.
And it was like I was like a child in a candy store. I had an awesome experience when they had the parade coming around. I was the one screaming like I was 4 or 5 years old. I'm in my 40s, but I had a great time. So if it's something as simple as this, or even they want to just take a day trip to their favorite like park by the water, we're able to facilitate that. So when they get to that stage of acceptance, then we can definitely focus on what do you want to accomplish? What do you want to leave behind for your family? What do you want to get done
Mm.
before it's all said and done?
I mean, that's also a good way to give persons who are going in an opportunity once they're cognizant of it, because some people aren't. But I
Right,
mean, give people opportunities to live out their life
right,
joy before they transition. So that's a good way.
correct.
What kind of counseling or bereavement support is available for loved ones?
So I have licensed social workers who are educated and experienced through different areas of life, but they're experienced in death and dying. They're able to speak and support the patient, the family, because with anything dealing with healthcare, you're not just focusing on just the patient alone. The patient extends to their family because it
Right.
impacts whether it be their parents, their children, whoever, or even their close friends. Counseling is available for anyone that requires it or desires it. There's also pastoral care. My father's a bishop, so I know my father very well. My father's the type that will sit down and speak with you and help you to get through this. Unfortunately, he's had members that have passed, and whenever he gets that phone call, my father does not hesitate to get up, and whether it goes to go to their home or even to go to the hospital, him and my mother, they don't hesitate to be there to be of support to the family. He also helps them plan the funeral. He knows Frank, who's in charge of Carmen Funeral Home. My father works very closely with him. So if the family feels overwhelmed, that they can't really focus on making those individual requirements or individuals adjustments or whatever needs to be done, preparation for that family member, my father is there to offer assistance.
Okay.
I know a lot of people, and in the hospital we ask, do you have a living will if anything's to happen? Sometimes death happens suddenly and families aren't prepared. Although I'm in my 40s, I'm already playing on a life insurance policy. Because I want to make sure that if anything's to happen to me, whoever's left me behind, whether it be my husband, my kids, my parents, that it's taken care of. They don't have to worry about going to GoFundMe to try and raise money just to bury me.
Right.
So I know family members, they have that burden because their family's not prepared for death. So I have access to an individual that can help them with financial planning as it relates to life insurance, so that that burden is not left on you while you're alive and the burden is not left on your family when you transition.
There's a lot put into the resources though that you have. So it's almost a one-stop,
One-stop shop.
Right, that's what it is. It's almost a one-stop shop for everything, which is good. So they can come there and the different avenues that they'll need, it's there provided for them. So that's good.
Even music therapy.
Yes, and I see that. I think you're doing a massage soon.
Music therapy, and we're trying to integrate massage as well. But music therapy is definitely one. It's amazing what music can do to an individual. It doesn't matter what genre it is. It can be country, it can be R&B, it can be jazz. But music for me is universal because it connects with the inner man, and it can put you at peace. Although your days are numbered, it's okay. You're living in that moment. So whatever we can do to help you relax, to help you reflect on the life that you live, that's what we're going to do.
Lovely. How can families ensure a smooth transition from hospital care to hospice home care?
So once the family contacts me, or even the patient contacts me, whether they're still in the hospital, if they're in a nursing home, if they're at home, the first thing I would do is find out exactly what their needs are.
Okay.
Find out what the diagnosis is, what the prognosis is. We know that a lot of times doctor might say you have 3-4 weeks left. And we know people have gone beyond the doctor. Right. So, but I'll still meet with them. I'll go out and meet with them in person also to find out what their needs are, to see if it's somebody that if the care required is somebody to come into the home daily for a couple of hours, or even if they need somebody there 24/7. Tell me what your needs are so that I can properly facilitate that and help you.
Right. Lovely. What are the ethical considerations when making decisions about hospice care?
So every individual has their own mindset. As a nurse, as an ER nurse going on, I graduated in 2006, passed my boards the same year, so going on 19 years of ER nursing. We are met in the ER with different cultural background, religious background, even patients with different economical status in life. But it's not for us to throw our opinion on them. My job is to not let my personal feelings interfere with the decision that the family and the patient has made. At the end of the day, their comfort and whatever they want to achieve is my top priority.
For people who are still a bit skeptical, even after hearing everything that you said, because some people don't want to do hospice because, especially home care, because it's expensive. Is hospice covered by insurance? Is it just out of pocket? Do people have payment plans? How can people go about doing it? Because people, as I said earlier, I think people sometimes are still a bit skeptical in terms of would they treat my family member good, because they have heard of many stories where people are not being treated in the best way possible.
Right.
So what answers is it for that can you give?
For me, I can speak for myself. I will never treat a patient or family member outside of how I would want to be treated or how I would want any family member to be treated.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when my grandmother was still alive, she at this point she was not verbal, but her behavior was showing that something was wrong. It was to the point that my aunt would call me and ask me to go by her house. At this time, my grandmother, my grandfather were still living with my aunt. Go by the house to check her blood sugar and to give her insulin if needed, because she would not let the aide do it.
Mm.
And it's not until further down the line we figured it out that the aide was over there mistreating my grandparents. So that definitely is something that I still reflect on. So even when my grandparents were in the hospital towards the ending of their lives, how I saw some of the nurses treat them. Like, my aunt had to call me and I went down there. I lived 5 minutes from Hartford Hospital when my grandmother was in ICU, and they did something my aunt didn't like. And I went down there and I definitely advocated for my grandmother. It might not have been the way that the nurses liked it, but you're not going to treat my grandmother like this.
Right.
And you're not going to this is the situation that happened. My grandmother was in the ICU and they weren't communicating with the family properly. And they were trying to move they were trying to move my grandmother to the step down unit. And they were trying to go through the back door while my aunt went downstairs to go and get something to eat.
Mm-mm.
So my aunt called me and I was livid. So I dragged on my clothes and I went down there and I spoke to the nurse. I spoke to the charge nurse and I asked to speak to the supervisor as well. And I said, I'm not trying to pull ranks, but at that time I worked for the state of Connecticut. And I said, this is unethical. You're not going to do that. When my brother was in the hospital in a coma, nurse came inside the room. I asked her, what are you giving my brother? She couldn't tell me exactly. I said, please excuse yourself from the room. Let me speak to your charge nurse.
Yes, please.
Spoke to the charge nurse. I said, put another nurse on. I said, because if you're going to give my brother a medication and you can't tell me right off the back what
Doesn't make
medication
sense.
you're not caring for him. Also, I had a doctor removed from his case because as a nurse, I'm able to recognize some things. His urine was dark and his left arm was swollen. And I asked the doctor, can you please order an ultrasound? Oh, nothing is wrong with him. It's from the trauma. Oh, he doesn't need any fluids. They did blood work. It showed that he needed fluids. They did an ultrasound. It showed that he had 2 blood clots in his left arm.
Mm.
So from personal experience, I'm not going to mistreat anybody. And I'm going to make sure those who work along with me don't mistreat anyone. And if that's done, they're just going to be automatically removed. No questions about it. Because I went through it myself. I don't want anybody else to go through it.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And even doing this, is your experience that have paved the way now for you to be doing what you're doing, and the treatment that people will be getting is really because the experience that you have had, and you realize that people do need to be treated correctly,
Right.
and people do need to trust the persons whom they're leaving their loved ones with,
Correct.
to be comfortable and to be safe while they even prepare for transition. So I mean, that's very good. I want you to tell us, Kadian, where is it that we can find you? Where can we find your business? Give us all the information.
So you can find me. You can call my personal cell phone because it's on 24/7 because I have family members, especially my parents who are getting up there in age. They don't want to admit it, but they're getting up there in age. So my phone is never turned off. So my parents can always reach me. So my personal cell number is 860-595-7585. My office is in Wethersfield, 433 Silas Dean Highway in Wethersfield, Connecticut, 06109.
And is there a website that they can visit?
Website, absolutely. PreciousMemoriesCare.com. PreciousMemoriesCare.com. care.com.
Lovely.
And an email address, preciousmemorieshospice@gmail.com.
Awesome. I want you to leave something with people who are listening and who are scared, who are frightened, who don't know how to deal with preparing for the transition of a loved one, and who just need someone to say something comforting to them. Can you leave something for them, please?
Definitely. Like I said at the beginning, when you hear the word hospice, you think of death. What I want people to do is when they hear the word hospice, think of, how am I going to leave my life? We hear so many times, there's on the tombstone, you see when they entered the world and when they exited the world, and there's a dash in between. Focus on how you spend that dash. That's what's going to be the memory that you leave behind. So whether the dash is going to be jumping off a cliff, doing skydiving, visiting your favorite park, eating a bunch of seafood before you transition, let that be the positive message that's connected to the word hospice. Let's just not automatically think death, but let us think, let me cross this off my bucket list.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody goes through death, whether it be your parents, your sibling. Unfortunately, I lost my brother, my only sibling. So I'm not going to lie, some days are challenging than others, but I still find ways to keep his memory alive. You know, God bless my nephew with 3-year-old twins that are my brother's grandkids.
Mm.
So his legacy is being continued. So the birth of those 2 kids was the light at the end of the tunnel for my family.
Yes.
And that's what keeps us going. Stay around a positive support system. Don't hang around with anybody that's going to be negative and say, oh my gosh, yeah, they're going to die or whatever. Hang around with somebody that's going to be there to support you, to be there to encourage you. Say, yes, death is inevitable, but let's think about what we're going to do with the time that we have left.
Thank you so much, Kadian.
No problem.
It was kind of heavy. It was kind of heavy to speak about, but it was good. And it was a good refresher to remind us to live our life to the best that we can. Use that dash wisely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you for that reminder for us. And I want to continue thanking my listeners for listening to The Unfiltered by Jade. And we'll be back next week, Tuesday. Thank you.
Bam, bam,